Hi, I'm Dr. Carolina Perez-Hadrich, faculty member within the Department of Biological Sciences and the coordinator of the Public Health Program at Meredith College. With this presentation, I, along with Drs. Jason Andrus and Karthik Agoram from the Biology Department, will walk you through some of the basic science surrounding COVID-19 vaccines so that you're familiar with them when it's your turn to get vaccinated. I'll start off by talking about why vaccines are important. Then Dr. Andrus will teach us about how your body responds to coronavirus infections. And Dr. Agoram will guide us through the development of vaccines, specifically the mRNA vaccines that are now available. After that, I'll bring us home with some information on the benefits and risks associated with vaccination. And we hope you all find this helpful, and please share any questions you might have after watching this video to the email provided at the end of the presentation. So I want to start off this presentation by acknowledging the fact that this has been a really tough year. Some of us have lost loved ones. Some of us have suffered from isolation. Some of us have been severely overworked, and some of us have been underworked. Some of us have even gone hungry. All of us have had to adapt in many ways that haven't been easy or fun. We've been angry, we've been scared, we've been bored. It's been tough. But there's a light at the end of this seemingly endless tunnel. In fact, I'm fairly certain we're nearing the end. We've got a vaccine, several actually, and they're extremely effective at preventing severe COVID. But we're almost there, though there's still some distance to travel. Okay, so let's start off by talking about why vaccines are important. Vaccines are just one of the many tools that are used to help control the spread of infectious diseases in exposed populations. We can think of pandemic mitigation strategies as a layered approach. And it's important to note that no one tool or layer is 100% effective at stopping transmission. But when we use them together, we can reduce the spread and impacts of disease to nearly zero. COVID-19 has disrupted our lives in many different ways that other diseases like flu have not. Unlike our seasonal flu, COVID spreads more quickly within populations. Part of this is because people can transmit the virus even before they start to have symptoms. This has made it really hard to control because people who don't feel sick typically don't know they're infected and continue to spread the virus unknowingly. Based on the available data on case counts and COVID-related deaths, it's estimated that between 1 to 2% of COVID-19 cases die from disease. Let's put this into context. Because so many people have been and continue to be infected, that 1 to 2% of cases represents a lot of people. Worldwide, we've had over 99 million cases and 2 million deaths. Many of these deaths are preventable. This is exactly why achieving herd immunity through natural infection is not a reasonable strategy. And here in the Triangle, we've fared pretty well compared to other parts of the country, and to date, only a small percentage of our population has actually been infected. While we've done well as a state, we can't let our guard down. The vaccines that are out on market right now have been shown to be highly effective at preventing severe forms of COVID that lead to hospitalization and death. And compared to natural infection, they provide a safer way to build protection against the virus. These vaccines will be valuable tools in our efforts to end the pandemic. Now let's delve into learning about how your body responds to coronavirus infection and the development of vaccines that are currently in circulation.
COVID-19, named for the year it was first identified in 2019, is the disease caused by the SARS-CoV-2 virus. SARS stands for Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome. COVID-2 stands for Coronavirus Type 2, is the virus that causes COVID-19. This virus belongs to the Coronaviridae family of viruses, named because they have a large number of outer proteins on their surface that resemble the crown when viewed underneath an electron microscope. The viruses that belong to this family usually cause mild to moderate upper respiratory tract illnesses such as the common cold. However, SARS-CoV-2 virus is capable of causing much more serious illness in humans. While some people who contract the virus may be asymptomatic or only suffer mild symptoms, others can develop much more severe symptoms requiring hospitalizations or even leading to death. The reason for this variability in disease is not well understood, although underlying health issues may contribute to patients developing the more severe form of the illness. SARS-CoV-2 is an envelope virus, meaning it has a lipid membrane that's surrounding a protein core, and it contains RNA as its genetic material. This is opposed to DNA, which human cells have. The envelope can be thought of as an oil bubble that surrounds the virus, with proteins sticking out of the bubble resembling keys looking for specific locked doors called receptors on cells found in the human respiratory tract. Because oil can dry out, so can this envelope, meaning that the virus needs to be transferred from one host to another in droplets that keep it moist. While it is possible to survive for a very small period of time on surfaces, it needs to be taken up quickly by a host to prevent drying out and, in essence, dying. This means that any object that comes into contact with the virus can only transfer the virus for an extremely brief window of time before the virus is inactivated and no longer can be infective. Getting SARS-CoV-2 from droplets on an object, like a package delivered to your house, is extremely unlikely, as the virus won't survive long enough to still cause infection when it reaches you. This is why droplets from coughing, sneezing, or talking is the most common way transmission from one person to another occurs, and also explains why masks are so effective at preventing the spread. Like all viruses, SARS-CoV-2 requires invading and reprogramming the host to make more viruses. This is reproduction. The virus does not intend to cause illness. However, in an effort to reproduce inside of host cells, the host cell's immune system will respond to eliminate the virus, and illness and death may result from the effort. Once inside the new host, the virus uses protein-like keys to unlock the doors or receptors of the target cell. Inside, they can reprogram the cell to stop doing its job and instead make new copies of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. These new viral offspring are made and assembled inside the host and leave taking the new envelope and copies of the key sticking out ready to unlock the doors of new targets, both inside the current human host, as well as leaving the body to find new locked cells in new hosts. Fortunately, our bodies are usually really good at stopping viruses by using our immune system. The immune system routinely scans for invaders entering our bodies. Should a virus infect a host cell, that host cell has the ability to notify the immune system that it has been infected and will be targeted for destruction to prevent the virus from reproducing and spreading further in the body. The initial response to this invader is broad and not very targeted and can result in a lot of collateral damage to the host. This response by the immune system makes us feel lousy when we have a viral infection. Sometimes, however, the response is so strong it can cause complications in the human, resulting in severe illness and, in rare cases, even death. But without it, the virus would eventually take over all of these cells, causing the body to fail and resulting in death. Now, the immune system has a few tricks up its sleeve to prevent these negative results. First, it can learn what keys the virus is making and make proteins called antibodies to stick to the keys. This has two effects. One, the keys with antibodies cannot unlock the doors on the host cells, and two, the antibodies flag the virus for destruction. But the process of learning what keys to target takes time, about 2 weeks for most of us. So how does the immune system learn what the keys are? One way is to get infected by the virus, which again can lead to host illness or even death. But it can also learn by merely presenting the keys themselves without the virus, reducing the response by the immune system, yet still priming it to recognize the targets. This is what vaccination is. Vaccination does not prevent you from being infected. Rather, it trains your immune system to learn what the viral keys are, allowing your immune system to mount a faster response, limiting the severity and duration of the disease. After about 2 weeks after first exposure, the immune system in either case knows what to look for. So the next time it recognizes the key from the virus from exposure, a specific and fast response can be made, preventing both illness and infection. But the virus also has some tricks. Since SARS-CoV-2 virus is an RNA virus, it makes copies of the new virus a little sloppy, meaning the keys may not be the exact same from its parents. Any new keys are usually useless, and these viruses can no longer infect hosts. However, rarely these keys can actually make the newer versions of the virus make it a little bit different from its parents with a new trait, such as being able to spread better, like the new SARS-CoV-2 variants. These small changes are referred to as antigenic drift, and sometimes our vaccines can work against this variant, but sometimes we may need a slightly different one, like the annual flu vaccine. Currently, it seems that these variants still use the same keys, even if the virus itself is slightly different, meaning our current vaccines will still work. But we will be needing annual vaccines to keep up with future COVID strains, much like flu vaccines. And now, Dr. Karthik Agoram will talk a little bit more about these vaccines.
The purpose of a vaccine is to train your immune system to quickly recognize and destroy an infectious organism. The first vaccine was developed by British physician Edward Jenner in 1798 to protect against smallpox infections. Since then, vaccines have been developed against a number of infectious diseases and have helped save hundreds of millions of lives. So how do vaccines work? Well, traditionally, vaccines have been made by isolating an infectious organism, inactivating it, and injecting it into a person's body. This tricks the individual's body into mounting an immune response, including an immune memory of the organism. If a vaccinated individual is exposed to the active virus, their immune system is ready to fight it off quickly. Traditional vaccines have been very successful, but it takes a long time to isolate an organism, grow it in the lab, inactivate it, and get it ready. Scientists have made tremendous advances in vaccine science and developed much faster ways of making effective and safe vaccines. So when the COVID pandemic hit, scientists immediately got to work using both old and new technologies on developing a vaccine. A few vaccines are already available for public use. The first two vaccines approved for use in the US are the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine and the Moderna vaccine. These are both mRNA vaccines and can be made much faster than traditional vaccines. So what is an mRNA vaccine? mRNA is the name of a natural molecule that is found in all the cells of our body. The human body is made of trillions of cells. Think of each cell in your body as a bakery. The DNA is a set of instructions or a recipe book to make proteins, like a recipe book to make cakes. The mRNA is a temporary copy of these instructions. So when a cell wants to make a protein, it copies the DNA instructions into mRNA, and the mRNA is used to make the protein, and the mRNA is immediately destroyed. COVID-19 mRNA vaccines are just mRNA molecules, but with instructions to make a coronavirus protein. When they enter our cells read them and make the virus's protein. Most importantly, this mRNA is immediately destroyed. So once our cells make this viral protein, it is recognized as an outsider by our immune system, and we now have a memory of this virus without ever having been infected by the coronavirus. mRNA molecules can be made within weeks, and this has shaved off years from the vaccine manufacturing process. So these mRNA vaccines have been put through rigorous clinical tests to study their safety and effectiveness. This includes the phase 1, the phase 2, and phase 3 human clinical trials with more than 30,000 test volunteers. Based on the results of these clinical trials, the mRNA vaccines have been found to be safe and effective. The BioNTech vaccine has been found to be 95% effective, and the Moderna vaccine has been found to be 94.5% effective. Now I hand the presentation back over to Dr. Perez-Heydrich, who will discuss the benefits of vaccines from a public health perspective to wrap up this webinar.
Okay, now that Dr. Gorham has provided us with some background on mRNA vaccines, in this last segment, I'll discuss the benefits and risks of vaccination based on what we've learned from clinical trials and the ongoing monitoring of vaccine effects. As mentioned previously, the vaccines that are out on the market right now have been shown to be highly effective at preventing severe forms of COVID that lead to hospitalization and death. And compared to natural infection, they provide a safer way to build protection against the virus. The biggest benefit of vaccination that we know about thus far is that it prevents severe disease in people who are exposed to the virus. Remember, a vaccine doesn't prevent infection. It just prevents individuals from experiencing severe disease as a result of infection. Although most people experience mild disease, there are several who experience long-term effects even after they clear infection. These COVID long haulers, as they're called, continue to experience these flu-like symptoms for several months following infection. There have also been documented cases of long-term problems associated with heart, kidney, and lung function, as well as long-term neurologic issues related to memory, concentration, and depression, among others. We're still learning about these long-term effects, though. To date, over 23 million doses have been administered in the US, with over 600,000 doses administered in North Carolina. Based on the data provided by the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, the risk of adverse events associated with COVID vaccination is low. Most serious adverse events primarily involve allergic reactions, which is why after vaccination, you'll be required to stick around for about 15 minutes or so that you can be monitored. But this is common with other vaccines as well. It's more common and completely normal to experience mild side effects like fever or headache, body aches, fatigue, and nausea, which aren't super fun, but also aren't super debilitating. These reactions are actually indications that your immune system is doing what it's supposed to do, that it's developing an awareness of the viral proteins to which it will eventually elicit a specific and protective response, like Dr. Andrus brought up previously. So what I've brought up here have been the known risks and benefits of vaccination, but there's a lot we don't know yet. For instance, we don't know how long an immunity lasts after getting vaccinated. Is it 1 year? Is it a couple months? Is it a couple years? We'll need more time to pass and more data to collect to have a better idea. We also don't know whether the vaccine will protect immunocompromised people, pregnant women, or people under the age of 18, since these populations were not represented in early clinical trials. Currently, scientists are running clinical trials with these populations to gather more information. And for this reason, we also don't know if the vaccine is safe to use in these populations, which is why pregnant women, kids, and people who are immunocompromised are not yet eligible for vaccination. We need to make sure it's safe to use in these special groups before making it available to them. And lastly, we don't know whether the vaccine is actually effective at preventing transmission. In other words, if you're vaccinated, can you still transmit the virus to others? We know it protects against severe disease, but we don't have enough data yet to tell whether it prevents transmission. For this reason, even after you get vaccinated, you should continue to wear your mask and practice all of the same mitigation behaviors we've been practicing for the past year, at least until we learn that the vaccine is effective at curbing transmission. There's still a lot of unanswered questions and data to be collected. So to recap, vaccines are just one of the many tools that are used to help control infectious disease outbreaks and pandemics. They can help us develop a protective immune response in a safe way that prevents us from suffering through severe disease. Without vaccines, many more people will die preventable deaths. Remember, 1 to 2% is a lot of people. We've been through so much, and we've come so far through this scary, dark tunnel, but we're almost there. We're almost there. We hope we've been able to provide you with some helpful information, but if you have any questions that we failed to address in this presentation, please feel free to send an email to covidupdates@meredith.edu with your specific questions. Thanks for your time and attention.